All right. Welcome back to Blue by 90. I'm Justin, joined by Jack and Kay. Oh, wait.
Oh,
And
Oh,
that's not me. I'm not Jack.
Jack's not here still. Sorry, Jack. No, I'm here with Kaylin and BJ, Brandon Justice. How you boys doing? How you feeling?
good.
I'm
Great.
feeling great. Feeling good.
Good.
Ready to roll?
Another dub. It's Victory Monday here. Monday night. We're recording this. Brandon, let's start off here. You did not attend the game on Saturday. Was not your fault. Let's start there. Not your fault at all. Give us the reason, because I think we need to rant about this.
Yeah, so my cousin, who I love very much and very happy for him to be married now.
Sure.
Congratulations to Trevor and Bailey. However, the wedding ceremony started at 3:15, and the Michigan kickoff was at 3:30. So right, and obviously
That's
those
a
two
tough
things.
time. Not even
No breathing
an
room.
hour difference. Like nothing.
And then you
Did
go
they,
through the
like-
ceremony.
Do they get like
Pictures.
married in front of a TV showing the game, or
Brother, there wasn't a TV in the venue the entire start to finish, nor was there any service.
oh,
No
brutal.
service, no phone, and I was rocking like one bar of LTE, refreshing the ESPN app like it was 2012 again. But it was crazy. It was honestly a humbling experience. It was a humbling experience. It felt nice to be reminded of all the things that we have now that we did not used to have, because I was refreshing ESPN, looking at the play-by-play. Like, oh, JJ McCarthy just had a pass for 12 yards. I was like, okay, sweet, let's go. And then like 10 minutes would go by, I wouldn't have an update. I'd refresh. They go for it on 4th and 2, don't get it. I'm like, how did they even get the ball? Like, last I checked, UNLV punted, because UNLV was punting within like 30-second increments, by the way I could tell. So, it was, but it was a first for me. I've heard all the horror stories about college football Saturday weddings. Got to experience my first. Again, very happy for them. However, the timing was tough.
I mean, I think, for people who have fall Saturday weddings, I'm sure you're great people. Just know that everyone that attends your wedding is angry at you and mad about the whole situation.
Yep.
I wonder, is there a way to like appease both fan bases? Like, can you have like
TVs.
TVs going? Can you maybe like, I don't know. I don't even know how can you help both fan bases?
I don't know if you
I
can.
don't think you can.
I don't think you can. I think you absolutely just don't do it. Just don't do it. There are 12 Saturdays a year.
Ooh, maybe the officiant is Coach Prime.
Oh, wow. That might come with a pretty penny, I would say. He's a wanted man right now. Or he would just do it and be like, I'm recruiting.
Exactly.
That isn't. I saw some potential prospects out there. I mean, I wasn't recruiting. I was being recruited by all sorts of alcohol I've never consumed before and I'll never consume again. But I was not recruiting prospects.
I love it. Yeah, just don't do it. Don't have your wedding in the fall. On a fall Saturday, even a fall Sunday. Like my brother was at a wedding last night too, and then I don't know. Just don't do it. Just there's plenty of other, winter, spring, summer. There's 3 out of the 4 seasons that you can do this, and I feel like that's plenty of options.
Reminding everybody of the seasons and when they occur is
Yeah, they do. So they go in that order actually, as well. But anyways, big dub for Michigan. I want to say this too. Are you underwhelmed with Michigan through 2 games? Because I've seen some people that are mad online. Now, I want to say though, before I ask you guys, I wonder, are those same people? Would they be mad if it was 100-0? They'll be mad if it's not 101-0. Like, are they just mad just to be mad, or is there a reason to actually be underwhelmed because Michigan has only scored 30 and 35 or whatever it was?
I mean, I'm not underwhelmed. I've loved everything I've seen. I mean, JJ had a red dot on the whole game, it felt like. So that was fantastic. I don't know what there is to be displeased about.
I think like the only thing to be displeased about is like the second team offense. The second team offense just isn't good, at least right now. I mean, I'm sure they might be long term, but it's just not good right now. I mean, it's been through 2 games. They really haven't done a whole lot. They haven't scored a point, right?
Yeah,
Both games. The second,
true.
So that's bad. That's not good. Because last year it seemed like when they brought the second teams in the Hawaii game and the Colorado State game, I don't know how many points they scored, but they had a lot more life in them. Now, granted, those two number 2 units back then had like Cade in one and JJ in the other, but regardless, like Davis Warren just looked better in general, and the offensive line has no shortage of depth, so it's not them. So I think it's the skill players. I mean, I just don't see a lot out of the second team wideouts and running backs but other than that, I mean, your depth is certainly important, but for Michigan to have a depth problem right now, they're like some serious shit would have to happen. They would have to lose a lot of guys because they rotate so many in their first unit as it is.
Yeah.
So for me, like, no, I don't think there's anything that's really underwhelming at this point because how good JJ's been, like that should outshine everything. Like every single college football dynasty starts with a really good quarterback, unless you're Georgia and you have some sort of like generational once in a lifetime defense. And JJ like really fits the bill, like to every degree. And right now he's playing. Anybody who watched Michigan football last year and watched it this year, there is a visible difference in how much better he is.
Oh, it's easy to see for sure.
When Blake getting 3 touchdowns is like the second coolest thing that happened for the offense. Like that's kind of like should tell you everything.
That is a good point. Like Blake had 3 touchdowns and nobody's really talking about it at all. That's when you know that your quarterback's pretty damn good.
Last year was all the conversation. Last year was literally just the run game for them. Like even aside from, I guess, the Hawaii game and obviously TCU, JJ had to come unglued a bit. But I mean, other than that, like all year it was just the run game. And not to say that the run game isn't there, but now the run game, and at least in the first 2 games, the run game looks more like a complementary type of role as opposed to being the featured, which is encouraging, I guess, to people who want sexy football. So
yeah, for sure. And it'll be interesting to see, like, I think everyone out there, I would say the JJ haters, the Michigan haters out there from other fan bases are sitting there saying, all right, you played East Carolina and UNLV, anybody can do that against them, whatever. And so it will be interesting to see how JJ continues to play, once they get into the Rutgers game and more Big Ten play and everything like that. But I agree with you, Beach. He is like, I mean, he looks like a different quarterback, super confident in himself and all that. And as far as that second team, you had Tuttle come in as a backup in week 1, and then Davis Warren was the backup in week 2. I believe we're going to see Alex Orji as the backup in week 3 now here. So
I thought Tuttle looked great in his one play this past weekend.
Yeah.
I mean, thankfully it was the non-throwing shoulder and everything, and he said he could have gone back in. But he had that little keeper. I was like, okay, Tuttle, he can move a little bit.
He's played a lot of football. Like, I don't think people understand that he started a lot of games at Indiana. And I know they weren't unbelievable when he was there, but that means a lot. And so I do think bringing him, I love Davis Warren. He's one of my favorite people on the planet. Super nice kid and just the best. But it helps a ton to have a guy with that type of experience come in, to be a second or third string, however they end up with the depth chart to JJ. So I like that a lot. I will say a lot of people seemed concerned about the O-line and the run game this year, though, as well. They is it just because we're not running for 400 yards a game, or are there actually I saw some O-line issues like missed assignments and stuff like that, but again, there's new guys on there. I don't know, is that an overreaction as well, or is there some warrant there too?
I mean, I think they're still gelling, right? There's obviously still kind of getting that chemistry going with the run game. Guys, learning, plugging guys in at the the right tackle spot, Trente Jones switching off. But I was actually more interested in Blake. I felt like Blake was not, he's 100% healthy, but he's not 100% where he was last year, right? He's not the dominant kind of juke you out your shoes guy quite yet. I think he's just got to get more reps and that kind of thing and get back in the groove.
I think
Yeah,
everything's going perfect. I don't have any problems with like the run game and the O-line. Like the O-line wasn't great in game one. Like I'll give you that, I guess. But like if you look at the tape from game one, ECU had 8, sometimes even 9 between the tackles. They were denying Michigan the run. They were forcing JJ to throw, and that's exactly what he did. And I think against UNLV, maybe wasn't as black and white as hey they stacked 8 in the box, but again, Michigan sees how well they can move the ball. Anytime somebody plays a zone defense against Michigan this year, through the first 2 games, JJ has and everyone's gonna bring up here's the lazy conversation. The lazy conversation is always UNLV, it was ECU. It's like it doesn't matter, it's a scheme. JJ's
right.
going out there and picking up zones. That's not normal. So my cat is going to make his appearance as the most annoying cat in the history of the planet. Anyway, he's picking apart his zone. And the point is, we weren't seeing that as much last year out of him. He was a little bit more erratic. Once he got past his first read, he was bailing out of the pocket. His pocket presence and just the way he goes through his progressions and the way to dissect where the soft spots are going to be. Use that with like how well Cornelius Johnson and Roman Wilson are running routes right now. Like that's really dangerous. Michigan's receivers were its biggest weakness last year, and it might be its biggest night and day difference besides the quarterback. And those are 2 positions that if you have a night and day difference in a year where you went to a college football playoff, it's probably going to end well for you in the second year from that. So I think everything's going well. Like, no, the run game's not going to have 400 yards. The O-line's not going to get 99 PFF grades because of it. But like, I think everyone's going to be all right when Michigan is able to go out and win a playoff game with a quarterback as its focal point on offense.
Yeah, and I think the reality is as well that the reality is if you win back-to-back Big Ten championships by running the shit out of the football, teams are going to load the box and try and get you to not be able to run the football. That's just the reality of the situation. So it's going to get harder and harder for this O-line, as that's Michigan's identity. Teams are going to say, all right, we're going to stop you, from running and force you to throw it. And so I kind of love that JJ's now showing it because once we get into the Rutgers and the Big Ten games of this season, now all of a sudden you can't just load the box because you have to account for JJ's arm. And, he is, as you said, BJ, just dialed. Like it's unbelievable. It's unbelievable how well he's playing and how good his arm looks. Because he looks so comfortable. He looks he just looks like a different guy. And so I think
I'm just watching Beach just yell at his cat right now.
I'm sitting here trying to get
this guy is
together.
This guy's off his fucking rocker.
He had to go on mute just for the cat. I love it.
Sorry.
But yeah, I don't know, man. I just think Michigan fans I get it. It comes from a place of love because you care so much. You want it. You want this product to be so unbelievable. But I'd say let's just enjoy the ride here. We're playing pretty good football. There's no reason to bitch and moan when your team is 2-0 and has won. What are we now? 27-3 in the last 2 years. Like just an absurd run that we're still on. Let's enjoy it a little bit.
Well, they forget. They forget how bad it used to be. So
yeah,
true.
I loved on this offense seeing both Blake and Dono on the field at the same time. That was so fun.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think a lot of people are like, oh, well, Donovan, he had a rough game. And, yeah, his stats didn't show it. But I think Blake excelled a lot because Donovan was taking, he was the decoy. And probably the same thing in the pass game, too. JJ excels a little bit because when Blake and Donovan are on the field, well, shit, your linebackers are probably going to be, trying to take away them. And that's going to leave open a slot receiver or something like that. So,
right. They even had Blake in the slot for a couple sets. I
love that.
And it's like, okay, now what are we doing? Is he running out for a pass? Is it a jet sweep?
And how about Colston Loveland had a jet sweep as well. I don't think it was super successful, but I love how there are a lot of guys that can play all over the field for Michigan on the offensive side of the ball. And it's going to be fun to see that Which, speaking of Colston, I mean, is he even a tight end at this point, or is he just Devin Funchess? Like what?
Right.
Like I'm pretty sure he's just playing that whatever that position is. He's just playing that position where he's listed as a tight end, but he's very much a wide receiver that just kind of that plays tight to the line.
I love it. I'm running Colson Loveland in my 4 verts call. So
I love that. I love that. By the way, we had a hell of a tailgate, I would say. I had a good time. Kalen, I know you had a good time as well.
Oh, yeah. Oh, absolutely. Always do.
Always. Had plenty of these Blue by 90 beers. I did say that I would commit to our listeners out there that I will be drinking 1 Blue by 90 and at least 1 Hale on each podcast. So here we go. I've already got the Blue by 90 beer down, to be honest.
Man of his word.
So
Those
Hale
are
IPA. You got to go to Plum Market in Bushes and grab a 6-pack. They're right there. It's beautiful packaging, honestly. They did have the Sparta IPA right next to it, which I almost bought one just to throw on the ground outside. But go grab your Hale IPA for this weekend for the game day.
Shouts out Hale. Shouts out North Peak.
Yeah, love it. Love it. We appreciate them. I've got the signage just got here, so we're going to have some new signage up on the tent this week.
Love that.
What are we thinking about the night game? It's a marathon, not sprint, boys.
Oh yeah.
Is Bowling Green good? I'm not gonna lie, I have not paid much attention to Bowling Green football in 2023.
Well, you want to know why? It's because Maction hasn't started yet. Maction doesn't start till October for those Tuesday night games. So that's when, I'll be honest, I feel like once that starts, I'm dialed into the MAC just because of that.
EMU.
I don't even want to discuss what's happening right now. Just carry on. You get the fuck off my fucking chair.
This is
premium
content. We should just comment. BJ's just screaming at his cat. Was he wrapped around
an addiction to this? I work from home and I get into Zooms and it's he doesn't do anything, and then I get on a Zoom and it's and it's why? Why?
That's for sure how cats work.
Oh, yeah.
That's definitely how all cats are, for sure, Beach. So we're all aware of the cat species and how they act. Bowling Green did lose the Liberty by 10, so that's impressive. I'm excited for the lights. That's going to sound really stupid.
That'll be cool. I'm excited for a night tailgate. An all-day tailgate is very fun. You just have to pace yourself.
Pace yourself for sure.
And that's why we have what is our percentage? 3 point.
We're 90 calories, 3.1, where Hale is 7.2. So I think it's a good combo. You definitely have to only have maybe 1 or 2 or a couple Hale IPAs, and then you have to switch to the Blue by 90 beer.
So you're a hard hey, let's hit the runway hard, and then let's just hit cruise control. Yeah. You're the guy who leaves at 4 a.m. for vacation and goes 95 until 9 in the morning, and then once rush hour hits, you're now we're cruising because we took up 3 hours of the ride right away.
Exactly.
Exactly. Yeah. Perhaps I'll join you on that journey on Saturday.
All right, that would be fun.
Hopefully, my dad doesn't walk up and while I'm doing a beer bong to the worst of my ability.
Why? That was fantastic.
That was amazing.
Yeah, it actually was probably one of our best core memories, but unfortunately, I definitely had to have not made him that proud by my performance because it was bad. Not that I've ever done. I know I look like a guy who's done a lot of beer bongs, but I'm a guy who actually never has done a beer bong.
It was just an incredible moment. Just Beach turns around, just his whole shirt is wet, and he just goes, "Oh no, peppered. My biological father."
Is that what I said?
Wait, is that what he actually said?
Oh, okay.
I didn't even know that's what I said, which is probably
that's amazing.
That's
amazing. Oh,
shout out Ray Justice, goat. Well, anyway, I'm hoping that doesn't happen. But as long as that doesn't happen, it should be a great time. And even if it does, it'll still be a great time.
We did it. Margaritaville theme was a hit. We all got laid at the tailgate.
Worked very well.
I don't know many other tailgates where you can guarantee to get laid at. I don't know. It's pretty impressive.
It's great.
I also something I can also guarantee that you can't get laid at is if you're having phone sex. I can guarantee. I'm sorry. That just came. I don't know where that came from. It just came to me. But
This is a good one so far. I had to lose the headphones twice so far. We're 20 minutes in. One was because of my cat, but the second one was definitely that.
Bro,
Oh my God. How much
We
are we
have
allowed to talk
to
about this?
We absolutely have to talk about the Mel Tucker situation. It's too wild of a story not to. I'll preface the whole conversation with, we're not trying to make light of the situation. If all the allegations that Brenda Tracy is saying are true out there, it's disgusting and wrong, and like being dead serious about that, it's gross, like all that. But what I'll say is like, you couldn't, if somebody like told me this fictional story and they said, here's the timeline of how it happened. Mel Tucker is going to get paid $95 million. They're going to make a slogan for him that's Tuck coming. And then there's going to be a sexual harassment thing against him the following year, or whatever. I'm like, you can't make this shit up. It's outrageous. This is the wildest story that I've ever heard.
It is a weird one in a lot of different ways. And I really am, I don't even know if this is the right way to say that. I'm like curious to see what happens, not in like a way where I'm like, there's no excitement. Like I'm not sitting here like, oh, I hope Mel Tucker gets fired, or oh, I hope these innocent. It's like I'm not really shedding one way or the other. It's like it's so like wild, and there's so many different parts to both sides of the story that are so contradicting of both sides of the story that I don't know. Like it's like the Johnny Depp and Amber Heard trial. Like I'm just here to watch. Like, and whoever says what, like I'll just sit here and let it all unravel in front of me, and then I'll formulate my opinion. Right now, it's just an insane story, and I do think the insane part of it being at specifically Michigan State, where there is a coach who has the phrase that involves coming in it, that also does not help the situation to be taken more seriously. However, I like that we are taking it serious. I think it's a great stand by the studious men of Blue by 90 and women.
And women. There are women out there. Yeah, man. It's just like, I don't know. A lot of people out there are saying he's coached his last game. And I think that he put out a statement today that like listed out details, called Brenda Tracy out, saying she's lying about the whole thing. It feels like the way that this is going, that there isn't a way that he can step onto the field again. That's just how I feel. Whether it's right or wrong, it just feels like this whole thing is just there's just no way, that he can be the coach. And it's
my understanding is that he's already been fired, correct?
That was what originally came out, and then was it Bruce Feldman, I think, put it out there right away, and then he like quote tweeted it and was like, no, actually they're waiting until the hearing to make a decision here. Alan Haller, who's their AD, went on a press conference yesterday. Didn't have a great showing, I'll say this. He was just like speaking in roundabout ways and not really providing a ton of information. I don't know. I don't think there's a playbook on how to handle this situation here where, like, what do you do with your $95 million man?
It also feels like if there's one school that should have the answers for how to deal with the situation like this, it's the school that just dealt with it, right?
Right.
So
I definitely agree with that. Like, Larry Nassar obviously isn't your head football coach, so that's different. And it was years later, but like they definitely just went through this, and from not only just a PR standpoint, but like how to handle, all of this stuff, you would think that they would they would have a little bit better, I don't know. It sounded like there was some stuff where like they couldn't know the details because it was like an ongoing case or something like that. So that was like the administration at Michigan State was like not allowed to know all of it until but like they must have known something, obviously. And then for them to not suspend him until the story gets out, then it just doesn't look good. It looks like you're being reactionary instead of proactive on it. So again, I think like you said, BJ, like we got to get all the facts here and then we can formulate opinions. But either way, just an absolutely wild story. And I'll say this, like, I think in this situation, at absolute best, Mel Tucker is an absolute moron for what has happened here, right? Like, even if it was all consensual, all this stuff, I mean, he was a married man. I know he says that their marriage was estranged, by the time, but you're married, the head coach of a football program that's a huge program in the country. You just got a contract for $95 million. Like you should be doing everything in your power not to lose that $95 million. Like, it's insane to me that you could possibly lose and fumble that bag.
Right. It's like he's been watching Wolf of Wall Street or something, like trying to reenact it.
Yeah, man. It's I don't know. Like I said, you can't script this stuff. It's I don't know. I don't want to make jokes and stuff because it is a sensitive subject but one thing I did tweet out today that I really, there aren't many times where I feel bad for Michigan State fans. I do feel bad for them right now because if this was happening to my school, like my team that I loved and that I put a ton of effort into following all the time, I'd be heartbroken. What do you even do? Like, how do you handle the situation as a fan? You still want to root for the kids. I also feel terrible for these kids who now, like, their whole college career has just been derailed completely. Like, it definitely sucks for the kids and the fans a lot.
Yeah, I'm 100% with you on that one.
Yeah. I would second that just because, I mean, it's a very peculiar situation. Nothing you can do about it as a fan. But
peculiar is an interesting way to put it. I like that.
Well, it's a very weird. I don't know. It's a one.
No, I agree.
You like to think it doesn't happen often because it doesn't happen often, not because it doesn't come to doesn't eventually get broken. You know what I'm saying? So I don't know. It sucks for everybody involved that's hurt because of it. But from a fan perspective, for week 3 of the season, you're not even in conference play yet, and you got a new head coach. And sure, in Michigan State's case, without any of this being considered, losing their head coach might not be the worst thing that's happening to the program right now. However, it might not be the worst thing. It's the way it's happening.
Conspiracy theorists out there.
Right.
The conspiracy theorists out there say it was a plant to get him out because he wasn't performing at that $95 million.
Well, he even said that. I mean, yeah, I think that letter.
Yeah, that was. You're right. That was in the statement, right?
Yeah, in the statement he said, "I believe this." Yeah, he said that he believes it's happening because of his contract and his race and gender, and he doesn't. And he name dropped, which I think was the most. I honestly, his statement, which I'm not going to get into the whole defense statement, but his statement was well put together, well evidenced. Like, I thought it was well written. I thought it was, about as good as an attorney can make this situation to be, if in fact what he's saying is true. However, the one part of it where he name dropped Nassar and was like, yeah, they're trying to avoid another Nassar. And I was like, oh, okay. Like, I don't know. I don't know if I would have.
I'm not sure if I would put my situation up in the same category as that, right?
Yeah.
Like, voluntarily.
So,
also, he name dropped Harbaugh.
Oh yeah, that was a weird one too. So the way that it looked like it was phrased is that Harbaugh is in Brenda Tracy's report too. Now, as I understand it, is Brendy Tracy released a huge report or some sort of like huge like memoir or something of the experiences she's had working in college football or something like that. And within that report, there was a lot about Mel Tucker, but there was also a lot about others. And he said, including Harbaugh. So, which I don't think it had anything to.
That was out of left field. I don't know.
I thought so too. He's like blindly. I wouldn't say blindly. In his opinion, he's not, I guess, but he's referencing Harbaugh in the same report. However, everyone who is anyone to report on news like this has read that report, and all they've gotten out of it is the Tucker situation. So I don't know if maybe there was something negative said about him in a different way, because obviously if it was anything of this, we would have already heard about it and gotten the whole update. So
yeah.
But yeah, no, that statement was wild.
I think it was like, yeah, I really don't know what exactly he was referencing there. It felt like he was like trying to like unite the Michigan fan base, be like, no, this is Brenda Tracy against me and Jim Harbaugh. Like, it's like, no, don't drag Jim Harbaugh into this. Like, that was weird. So I will say Jim Harbaugh, I thought, handled it well today in his press conference. Of course, he got asked about it, and he pretty much just said, like, I don't know anything about this, so I'm not going to touch on it. And that's, I think, the only way you can handle that if you're Jim Harbaugh, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, it's the type of questions people are going to get pissed that they ask, but I mean, it is what it is. Like, everyone's going to ask it eventually. So, but that's about all you can do is what he did.
And what, like, if he says anything at all, if he does have a comment, it's going to be a headline on ESPN or something. It's going to get misconstrued. Like, that's the only way to handle that for sure. So, all right, let's get back to on the field football here. One thing I wanted to touch on that we didn't as well is the defense for these first two games. I mean, the reality is we should have 0 points scored against us. The only reason that points were scored in the second game was there was a pick thrown, late in the fourth quarter. And in the first game, they pulled the James Franklin, right, and kicked a field goal, which apparently ECU had a crazy streak going of that they haven't been shut out in like 29 years or something like that.
Got to keep the streak.
I mean, I respect it if that's the case.
Yeah, that was crazy. I mean, that was crazy. Go ahead, Galen. Sorry.
No, that's.
That was a very sad field goal.
It was a sad field goal, but I'll say it's way better to do it as ECU than it is to do it as Penn State. That's all I'm about.
Yeah, I'm sure we'll have some James Franklin sad field goals approaching soon. They got a pretty good team. They scored. I mean, they played FCS team, but I'm looking at this power rating index system. I look at a lot.
Yeah.
Shout out to Tyler Shoemaker. It's actually got Michigan through 2 weeks as the sixth best team, which is, whatever. It's sample size type stuff. But their defensive rating is 14.2. USC's defensive rating is 24.6. So I think we're just going to need some time to let this marinate. But, I mean, I don't know. I think the defense looked really good. I think the defensive front is like the best part so far for me, because Michigan's always had good edge work. But, dude, Chris Jenkins and Kenneth Grant and Mason Graham are just like an absurd interior. Like, not even absurd for Michigan, like absurd for like most schools not named Georgia, over the last couple of years. And, Kenneth Grant looks like unbelievable. Chris Jenkins just looks like himself, but looks like he doesn't have to do everything himself.
Like, you want to know what I noticed about him? There was one, I was watching Jay Do on Twitter, his recaps on Sunday mornings. And there was one play where Chris Jenkins, like, he had to go to his right, and then he was rushing the quarterback who was dropping back, and the quickness that he had to get like 5 yards to the quarterback, the closing speed there was really incredible for a guy that's 300 whatever pounds he is. Like, to be able to do that is just impressive. And then this is little bit of a humble brag here, but I dapped up Kenneth Grant today, and
Okay.
he makes me. I'm 6'3", 215. He makes me feel like I might as well be 5'7". Like, oh my god, he's so big.
The defensive line this past game just like had how many 5 sacks or something like that? Like
Which
those guys
everyone
just
was bitching about after game one because they didn't have a sack, and
Right.
then they're just like, all right, we can do it though.
they just pinned their ears back and went for it this game, and it was awesome to see. And then I actually really liked the linebacker play from our veteran guys, right? Mike Barrett and Junior this past game. I thought they did really well.
Absolutely.
They look a lot.
Go ahead.
They look a lot more complete as a linebacking core. I mean, Michigan's always had something missing with their linebackers the last few years, and I know I just kind of like raved about the defensive line being that way as well. And I think the defensive line probably traded off a strong interior for a less strong edge presence. I mean, I think Bennett will get there, but the linebacking group is like really impressive. I mean, Houseman, we knew we were getting with Houseman, but he's just looked like the third leg that they really, really needed. Like, he keeps, because Colson's play recognition is just, it's like astonishingly better, which is not necessarily to say he's playing astonishingly better. He is playing really well, but like it was just like bad at times last year, like bad. He does a lot of things really well because he's so freakishly athletic and like he can hit through a freaking wall. But the awareness and then the pickups of like what plays were happening and which gaps to go through, it wasn't really as much there last year as it is this year so far. And I think that probably has to do with Houseman taking some weight off his chest and Michael Barrett playing to a level that, good for Michael Barrett. Like he's probably got to be one of the most likable Michigan players of the last like 10 years. I mean, he's
also just the most underappreciated, I think, too, because like he does so much good stuff, but because he's not the sexy name, he was never a high recruit. He's been through so much. I mean, shit, this guy was the Viper of Don Brown's defense, back in the day. And now he's in his 6th year just killing it. And, he may very well not have a great pro career ahead of him, but damn, he has done a phenomenal job for Michigan here in these past few years.
Yeah, he's been awesome.
Through that great fake punt pass back in 2019 or something like that.
Yep.
They need to get him in that pop pass play they ran against Ohio State with Mullings last year. It might give it away for any. I mean, I would assume Ohio State would have a scouting report on Michael Barrett being a former quarterback, but he's definitely the ideal guy. I mean, he came in here as a QB.
How about this defense too? Doing this, Will Johnson did get in on Saturday. He had a series, I believe. So that's encouraging to see him getting back there. I'm not sure if Rod Moore had a series. I don't think he did get in. But for this defense to be doing what they're doing, basically without those guys, is really impressive. Makari Page has been not 100% at all either. So for them to be doing this is impressive. It's nice. Jesse Minter, I just still think back to the fact that we had last year a brand new defensive coordinator after finally our defensive took it to the next level. Then you get in a new defensive coordinator. Well, he's been really, really good. And I'm loving what I'm seeing so far from this defense again this year.
Yeah, I hope he sticks around longer than our old defensive coordinator who was one and done, right? So This is year 2 with Minter. So
I could see him going to the NFL, though. I don't know. He does kind of seem that way.
It'll be interesting to see what happens with him because, I mean, he's young, right? But he's super experienced for how young he is. I think he came in here with like 8 years of college experience, and he had coordinating experience at Georgia State. And I think he was like 30. So he's got like 35 now, maybe 36. He's not.
He looks really young. Yeah.
So I think they might be able to leg him out for a few because here's the thing: like Michigan's now at this level where you're at that Clemson stage with Dabo, where it's like, yeah, you want to go? Go ahead. Go see how like a group of 5 head coach works out for you. If you think you can do it, great. But when it's time to come back, you can call me back. I got a new defense coordinators in that spot. It doesn't have to be communicated that way, but I mean, how often do you see guys? Like, think about the guy at Boston College right now, like who left Ohio State as DC to go be the head coach at Boston College, and that's already numbered. And then what? He's going to go bounce back and be a DC at this place or the other. Like, if you're comfortable where you're at in college football as a coordinator, just stay. Just stay. Unless like you're like a born to be made head coach. If you're just like, you know what, I'm going to go be a head coach now. I'm going to try this out. You better be sure of it, in my opinion, because like you're more than likely, statistically speaking, going to end up in a group of 5 coordinator job next year. So,
you know who I actually do think like Sharon Moore and Mike Hart are doing it the right way, where they're waiting that out. Sharon Moore and Mike Hart both could have coached somewhere, been a head coach somewhere, I believe, after last season if they wanted to. And they're saying, you know, no, either A, maybe they're the Michigan head coach at some point here in the future, or they're going to wait it out. Instead of that group of 5, then they go to, you know, in Illinois or, you know, something of that where it's a better situation because it's so easy to when you're making what is a, you know, an OC makes what, $1 million or something like that. You know, it's so easy to say, oh, I could make $4 million to go be the, you know, fill in the blank, not so great job as a head coach. It's so easy to take that. And I would never blame anybody for taking $4 million a year. But I do think if you truly believe in yourself and you stick that out and you build it, you know, you're actually building a program, building an offense or building a defense, you're going to end up in a better spot for the longevity of your career.
Yeah, no, 100%. I mean, it's all with college football. It's all repeated behavior. I mean, you can go back and pretty much look at what any coach decides to do and go look at what the coach before him did. I mean, look at what was the guy at Boston College before Hafley? I forgot his name. Adazio. He was there for a minute. Then he went to Colorado State, I think, and that didn't work. It's just you play the hokey pokey, and it's like you're bringing your family all over the country, and I don't know. Again, like if you're gonna do it, you gotta love it. Like being a college football head coach is like a whole different ball game compared to doing pretty much anything in the world, I would say. Because as an NFL head coach, I mean, you're backed by a franchise. You have like 100 staff members. When you're a college head coach, especially like group of 5 school, where you're like maybe your funding isn't as great. I mean, you get your 11 assistants and then your support staff, but your support staff is really contingent on how often or how much funding you get from the school. It's like we talked about Michigan baseball a couple of years ago when Bakich left and everything. And the whole story with that was like, yeah, Michigan could compete if it had the funding to get the support staff that all these other schools have. And you think about the group of 5 schools these guys leave for, they don't get that same support Michigan has here or that a lot of the Power 5s do. And it makes your job way harder. You have to work 10 times harder to make 3 times as much money or 5 times as much money. And, you know, 1 in 10 times it works out long term. We'll put it that way.
It's got to be a wild way to coach, right? Because like places like UAB where they didn't even have a locker room, you know, stuff like that. You're playing your first game against Georgia or something because you need the check, but it's like a game you'll never win. Like, how do you build a resume, a really good resume from that situation? It's tough.
Use that money to go build your new locker room to recruit the next year. And I mean, seriously, that's really the game plan. Usually is you try your best to score once against Georgia, and then you can say like, oh, we were one of their 6 touchdowns that they let up all year long. You know, like, so it is. I agree with you though. It's so hard. It's so hard. And I think it's only getting harder in the NCAA because of NIL and everything. The gap is just widening between the top dogs of the country and the rest of college football.
I feel like weirdly though, like everyone has an opportunity though now too.
Agreed. Right? Colorado, look at them. You know, totally.
That makes it so strange. Now you can just like have some gimmick.
Well, it's kind of like turned into college basketball a little bit where like all you need is one good lineup, you know, to make a run, and then you can all of a sudden maybe build a program off of that one run, right?
Yeah, I think when you look at like the most successful, like the guys who do what like Deion Sanders is doing right now, like Deion Sanders is Deion fucking Sanders. Like, like he's doing all this stuff with like an insane amount of evidence, like a lot of proof of concept. Like he's recruiting these kids, and he's like, hey, like, here's everything, like yay or nay, you know. Like it's not that simple, but he has so much evidence. If you're a guy, like I keep going back to Jeff Hafley at Boston College because he sucks, and he's having a hard time, and it's like he doesn't have that type of like repertoire. He doesn't have that resume. He doesn't have the connections that Deion has to bring in. He brought in Tim Brewster to go coach at Colorado. Tim Brewster is one of the best assistants ever going to coach at, or at least in the last like 10, 15 years, especially recruiting wise. And he's just going to go to Colorado. Like pretty much he was off into the sunset. And I thought he was done coaching, and he just shows up at Colorado and now he's recruiting his tail off. And, you know, he's a polarizing individual, but all the same, what Deion has done is pretty special. And we're 2 games in, and he could go 8-4 this year, and there will still be a lot of people respecting the fact that he beat TCU on the road and then beat the shit out of Nebraska. But we could talk about the coaching tree and the path of coaching and how wildly volatile it is year to year, especially with the new landscape of college football where it's like free agency every year, and recruiting is like more so like, what have you done for me lately than it is, what are we going to do 2-3 years from now?
Wild that the Pac-12 is like one of the best leagues in college football for some reason right now.
It is crazy for a league that's quite literally disbanding in like 8 months.
It's so strange.
Like,
I mean,
what a
like
time.
without USC, like who else is Utah, Oregon? I mean, they're good every year.
Utah is great right now. Oregon's solid, I would say.
Oregon State playing well right now.
Yeah.
UCLA. Yeah, DJ Uiagalelei. Go look at that Oregon State program. They were absolutely awful 2 years ago.
Oh, yeah.
Like 1 in 11 awful,
yeah.
right? And now, I mean, all it took was you go get a quarterback, a 5-star quarterback who obviously didn't play as well as everyone wanted him to at Clemson, and things are changing. And also, you go look at Clemson with their new 5-star that they got rid of the old 5-star for, and he, you know, didn't play well in week 1 and they lost, right? So it's like,
And they almost lose this week?
They
really
were
bad team.
down in the first half of the majority of the half. So it's, you know, I will say, like, the whole landscape of it is hard. I can't imagine being a head coach at this point, because it's like the same way that the kids are looking at the grass is always greener. You as a coach also probably are looking, as soon as a guy is like struggling, you're looking elsewhere for how are we going to replace him next year, you know, or what other transfer are we going to go get? It's got to be just a whole weird situation. So let's what you want to wrap up and go around the Big Ten in the country for a little check in with some other teams here.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
All right. Let's see. Nebraska, Colorado. That was the most boring first half of football. We had that on in the tailgate. There were 0 points scored for so long.
I went back and watched. I didn't realize there were like 2 fumbles in the like first quarter or something.
Mhm.
It's like, what is going on?
It was sloppy football, and then Colorado played a really, really good second half. Nebraska, just not good still. They're just I don't know what cursed that program, but something's got them by a freaking chokehold.
They're so bad.
Yeah, that game all of a sudden for Michigan doesn't look like it's going to be a contest. I mean, you still got to go on the road and play well. Like, I'll say that for every team on the whole schedule, but I think it's not, you know, it's not
That Sims dude is kind of shifty though. So
what's that?
Yeah, that Sims QB at Nebraska, he's kind of shifty. You do have
Yeah,
to
but
keep
he fumbled like 3 times. I
Right.
don't know. He was making such stupid mistakes. Anyways,
Well, it was funny though, because they would like have like a jet motion or something, and then the center would like snap it right when the motion was in front of the QB. So he's like, "Oh shit!"
they definitely were not all on the same page. That's for sure. Notre Dame, I will say, they look really good. I mean, NC State's not like a powerhouse, but they're scoring 45. I think Hartman's good. I don't know.
Yeah, Hartman's fucking legit. The clock stuff is still new to me. I'm trying to like understand. There's a lot of people on Twitter who are like the clock. What I'm referencing, for those at home, when the clock used to stop after first downs and no longer stops. So I'm trying to figure out, like, how are we supposed to grade a team like Michigan, who in the first 2 games, yeah, they've scored 35 and 31, and like a team like Notre Dame, like, yeah, they've scored 45 and they've scored, but did Notre Dame starters start the whole game in the fourth? All four quarters against NC State? Did they start? Who they open up with? Navy. I don't think they started all 4 against them, but they might have. But like Michigan, they kept the starters in for longer than I thought in the first game. But the second game, again, I didn't see it, but based on the game cast, it seemed like they went out pretty early, and so it's hard to quantify. Like, I know, like, the conversation is always going to be, it's hard to quantify how good teams are after 2 weeks, but it's like really hard to quantify right now because of this new rule change where offensive production is kind of like skewed in a way. And a lot of people think, oh, no, it doesn't actually matter, just score points. And it's like, yeah, but a team like Michigan, who is pretty much like all in on game management and clock management and just keeping the ball away from the other team, and it's all possession to them, it does affect them because Michigan really doesn't care if they score 40 points. They care about the margin of victory. It doesn't matter if they win by 30 by scoring 30, if they win by 30 by scoring 60. They want to win by 30. Yeah. And a team like Notre Dame has rolled in more competitive games, more competitive opponents. But I do think they're good. I do think Sam Hartman's really good. I do think he's like their best passer since, who was the last really good Notre Dame quarterback? I don't even know.
Tommy Rees.
I think they've been in like a similar Michigan. Who? Tommy Rees was, I don't know. He's a much better coordinator than he was a coach.
I was just going to say he's a way better OC than he was a quarterback. Yeah. But
yeah, I respect
it. No, I agree. Utah struggled with Baylor. Baylor seems okay.
Well, they lost last week to who? Baylor? They lost to some.
Now. They lost to
a bad team. It was
Texas State. That's right.
Yeah,
but then played like really well against Utah. So I don't
know. Classic hangover game for Utah. Classic. Yeah. You have the opener on Thursday night against Florida in front of everybody who's watching, and then you go play a team that's off a really bad loss. It's just like those were like common, like when you're betting on games, like those are 2 things you look at. So like, one of those things where in my head I was thinking like, hey, Utah's probably not going to win by a lot this weekend, but I didn't say it, so I can't really claim it. But it's a typical thing. So I thought, I don't think it's like super surprising, but good for most teams.
Classic where you're like, yeah, I should have known that. I would have, if I would have bet that, I would have,
I heard it up here. Like my inner self told me, but I told him he was wrong and that it would be outlandish to think that Utah couldn't handle Baylor after losing Texas State, but sometimes you got to trust your gut, I guess.
Yeah. Ohio State, Youngstown State. You see that?
Yeah. They're not scoring a lot of points either. I do know that their fan base is very mad. I will say that. They're like complete panic mode because they're not scoring 70 points against Youngstown State.
They're in shambles. They're in shambles, and I would love to have a whole episode on how Ohio State fans are, specifically Ryan, Big Ten Ryan. I would love to have a conversation about that.
I think McCord looked a lot better in this game than he did in the first game, which I'm sure he's just going to keep getting better and better because that's what happens with experience. But still, like, it's crazy to say this, but beating a team 35-7 is about half of what Ohio State of past years would do. They would put up 70 in that game. You know what I mean? So I don't know. There's it's just interesting. Something to watch. Iowa State. Cade McNamara straight up said, what was his quote in there? He said, "I'm not used to defenses scoring points." That's what he said. Just everything that comes out of his mouth is trying to be a slight at Michigan, which I just don't understand because they went out against a very mediocre Matt Campbell team. And, yeah, their offense put up what? Field goal, touchdown, field goal, and that's it. So, 13 points. Good job, Cade. Sorry, I'm not trying to be a hater, but if he's going to be a hater, then you're going to bring it out of me.
Yeah, he's just always been so damn arrogant, and I never ever understood why. I thought it was like, okay, he knows he's the leader of the team and he's trying to prove, like when he's doing the media stuff, he's trying to just rally the boys a bit, and Michigan was in a really tough spot where everyone was counting them out even when they were winning games, and like I thought that was just part of it, and he was just adopting this Michigan versus everybody thing, and I thought that was not projecting onto the team. I thought like what he was projecting was what the team kind of was feeling, and maybe they were in a way feeling that way, but seeing it now carry over to Iowa, like in the exact cadence that he had it here, just proves that he's actually just extremely arrogant, and that's just the end of it. And I guess there's nothing like wrong with that. If we had a conversation about people being arrogant, I'm not allowed on them, probably arrogant. I don't know. But this guy is like a special kind of arrogant. Like it's actually like, and forget the whole he's a kid thing. He's like 23 years old. He is going on national TV and saying, "Oh, my defense." It's like, what?
You played with.
Doesn't make any sense.
Literally, this like on his Big Ten championship team was the second pick in the draft on his defense. They were like one of the best defenses in recent Michigan history. Ajabo just sacked Stroud in the opener yesterday. Talk
about how bad your receivers were, and that's fine.
Dax Hill and DJ Turner, they both were absolute studs. They're playing for the Bengals. It's not like he had a bad defense. Like
just keep winning. Please keep winning.
He had.
Let's see an Indy.
He had to just be like I'm hoping for his sake, like he was just in the moment and was just like, I'm just gonna rip this one off, because like the amount of evidence like discrediting that statement is just like absurd, like just absurd. Like it's like I don't even know. Not to mention, wasn't his completion percentage like 48.5%?
Listen, I'm over it. I'm over
whatever,
it. It's
dude. We get
it's
it.
Not even worth it. It's not even worth it.
JJ's better than you. You don't like it. We get it. It's fine.
Minnesota kind of struggled with Eastern 25-6. It was 10-6 at halftime. So that's another away game for Michigan that was like everyone's like, oh, that's gonna could be a tough one. It's like I don't think so. Rutgers now, who Michigan plays in 2 weeks, 36-7 against Temple. I mean, Rutgers is not like a terrible program right now. Under
Greg Schiano is a good coach.
I love Greg Schiano, man. Like they've got their guy. Now he's back for is it the second or third time now?
Do you remember that statement I made earlier when I was like, hey, when you leave, like you're pretty much just begging to circle your way back around to come back? Like that's literally the Greg Schiano experiment.
Yeah.
If he never would have left Rutgers, hear me out. There is a multiverse where Greg Schiano never leaves Rutgers and they're a national power. But I don't live in that multiverse, so I can't tell you what it's like. But I'm telling you,
I would love that.
Do you remember how good they were? Like when they weren't like Oregon with Mariota or anything. They weren't like,
they were good though.
They were good. They were really solid. They were winning like double-digit games a couple times, I think, but I don't remember that. I just remember them being good. I don't remember them being, and maybe that's like relative to them losing 78-0 to Michigan in 2016, and that being like forever their shadow to me. But
he's just like playing the real life version of NCAA. Just like, let me go like over here.
He is.
I love it.
You know who else did that originally, and who was kind of like this is a good segue, Justin. I promise. Ole Miss Tulsa.
What? Why'd you say
Lane Kiffin?
Oh, yeah.
He's done. He was the OG NCAA player before you could even like really do that in NCAA. Like he pretty much gave the developers the idea, but now he's settled into Ole Miss. How did they do against Tulsa? Because I watched the game on my Gamecast and I never checked the score, and I'd love to know. Honestly,
where were
they? Won. Ole Miss.
Did they win? Because I remember that game being real back and forth. That's why I said good segue though, because I was like, it's still talking about the scores.
Yeah, Tulane,
not Tulsa.
Tulane, solid school, but they lost 37-20 final score.
They're ranked. I think it was like 22 versus 17 or something.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Wisconsin lost to Washington State as well. Like that's
fickle.
I don't know. Are they still? Is that just rebuilding mode? Do you think for Wisconsin still, or? I mean, they've got great running backs still there.
Yeah,
they
I
have
don't even-
really good running backs. Like, first of
Braylon
all,
Allen
could you imagine if
started.
Braylon Allen was on this team? Second of all, yeah, I don't think it was supposed to be like a rebuild. Like, I think they weren't going to be great this year, but I didn't think they'd be. Didn't they play pretty piss poor last week too, and then they go lose this game to like a not good Washington State team, as I understand it?
Yeah, man. I guess what we're just getting at in total was like the Big Ten is just not that good. Like outside of
Well,
Michigan,
what do you know? The
Ohio
Big Ten
State,
West is
Penn
bad.
State, the Big Ten West is so bad, man. It's so bad. Like
Well, Cade's going to do this whole Iowa thing, and Eric Hall's going to score touchdowns against Our Lady of the Blind. And we're going to get the end of it. Then they're going to meet in the Big Ten championship and lose by 80. So you can already see it now. Week 2, and we already know the whole script.
oh, there you go. All
Yes,
right.
the Big Ten
Well,
sucks.
the Big Ten sucks, but Michigan's the best. That's all I know. That's all I know. Hour on
Oh,
the
you
dot
only
right
need one
here.
good team.
Oh yeah.
Hour on the dot. I like it.
This is my first
will
pod
be
in a while.
back. I know. Welcome back, Beach. It's good to have you.
Making it in.
Feels good. Shout out to Jack
Good
for
to have
missing. I
you.
love taking your spot.
I almost love Jack missing at this point just so I can give him shit for missing. Like that's
He's on
actually
he's
very
got that phone call.
satisfactory for me.
Does he like? How often has he missed the last 5 weeks? We're gonna have to start having. You know, I'm kind of new to the crew here, but might be Dom.
Time
Just
for-
leaving
time
it
for that.
hanging.
I love that.
Might be down to what? Who knows?
BJ's got me on the end of my seat. I'm like,
Who knows?
oh.
What could it be? Might be down to. There's a lot of things that you could have finished that sentence with, but
you got to
Yeah,
tune
I,
in to our next
it was a
episode.
really poor time for me to call for accounting meetings, and then my Wi-Fi go out. But I don't, on me. Sorry, I deserved that.
It's all good. It's all good. All right. Well, we'll be back later this week, and maybe you'll find out what BJ will be down for later on the next episode here. So if you've made it this far, I applaud you. And BJ just straight up gone, just
I love
gone.
it.
He just dipped from the whole episode. I love that. But I'll be having another Hail IPA on the next podcast. So if you're listening, go get one and drink one with me. That would be nice. That would be a nice little cheers me at the beginning. And yeah, that would be nice. Head to Bush's, head to Plum Market, grab your 6-pack of Hail IPA, and let's cheers. And then come on Saturday to the tailgate, and then you can get a Blue by 90 beer as well. So we'll be
There you
back later this week for a little Bowling Green preview. Where I don't think we'll spend much time actually like breaking down Bowling Green. So it'll just be it'll just be us talking about drinking for 8 hours because it's
Maybe.
a night game. Really,
Who
that's
knows? Depends how many
Yeah.
hails we have.
That's true. That's a good point. So, all right, we're bringing BJ back up for this. All right, you can follow us at Blue by 90
Yeah.
on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, at Blue by 90 Podcast on YouTube, and blueby90.com. We appreciate you. Go Blue.
Go Blue.
Go Blue.